I'm Ruxandra Guidi, but as Jenna said, everyone calls me Rux and knows me as Rux. I'm based in Tucson, Arizona, and I am one of the two nonfiction editors at Adi. I've had the pleasure of editing Kirsten, but not Rania. But both of them have published with us, and Rania, I believe you've wrote an essay. Yeah, it wasn't fiction, although Rania is also a fiction writer. But let me start by introducing you both, and then we can just start. Kirsten Han is joining us from Singapore. She's a writer, journalist, and activist. She runs We the Citizens, a newsletter covering Singapore from a rights-based perspective. She's also the editor-in-chief of Mekong Review, an Asia-focused literary journal, and she's a member of the Transformative Justice Collective. We'll be hearing more about that a little bit later, where she works towards the end of the death penalty and Singapore's war on drugs. And Rania Mamoun is a Sudanese activist and best-selling writer of poetry, fiction, and nonfiction. She has worked as a journalist in her native Sudan and published two novels, Green Flash and Son of the Sun, and the short story collections 13 Months of Sunrise, and most recently Under the Neem Tree. She is a writer in residence at City of Asylum in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania since 2019. Welcome to you both. Thanks so much for being here. Um, I was hoping we could start with a big picture question and talk about state censorship and the first time that it kind of snuck into your work, into your consciousness. Give us a sense of tell us a story of what that was like. Either one of you can start.
Yeah, I suppose in Singapore, it probably had already snuck in without even realizing that that's what it was. Because I think during childhood, it's not like my family talked about politics very much or anything, but you kind of always had a sense anyway that there were certain things that you would not say or that people would not talk about, or that, if anyone was kind of critical of the government, somebody might go, you can't say that. And so like I think I was, even before I recognized it as censorship or self-censorship, or even as like anything politically ex oppressive, there was already a sense kind of in the background that there were certain things that you couldn't say, and it was just there, and it wasn't recognized as being unfree. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, that's how it is. And I think when I started kind of writing about Singapore and being more active in like the civil society activist space, there were more people who were warning me, including family. And I think at that time it just wasn't real to me, because it was kind of like, I'm a 21-year-old kid with a blog, like why would the government care? And then by the time you realize they do care, it's kind of like, oh, I see. Okay. So I think that's kind of how it snuck up on me a little bit, that, it was not about discovering that it was there. It was actually recognizing that it had been there the whole time.
Can I ask you a quick follow-up? How did you
Yeah.
know that the state did care? Did you get a message that they were reading your blog? How did you know?
Um, so the yeah, I did eventually kind of find out that they were monitoring the blog a little bit, like just to kind of keep tabs on what was being said about them, so that I had kind of like, even my blog had kind of generally made it into their like media monitoring stream. Um, so I did find that out, but you kind of learn from the way that they respond to certain things. So I was involved in working with media outlets on stories about homelessness, and then the government responds directly to the story. I was involved in death penalty cases, and so the way that they respond to it, you kind of realize that like, oh yeah, they actually are quite hostile. Like, it's not like the government directly engages when they want to, and can get quite hostile directly, even if, you're somebody on social media or somebody with a blog.
And Rania, how about you?
For me, being censored or under the radar It started very long, like at very young age, as a girl in Sudan. And censorship in Sudan is not just about expressing your opinion. It is about how you live your life, how you express your life, how you express you as a human being or what you want to do in life. For example, at the despite the social and family thing, but according to the state, in in elementary school, when the government came, the late government came, which came, the Umar al-Bashir regime came, they forced all the girls to wear hijab, you know? And they even went further when we were in first, like in seventh grade, where is the middle school here, like it equivalent middle school here. They enforce us to pray the Salat al-Dhuhr which is the mid of the day prayer at school, all of us, and we have to do that. And actually I wrote an essay called the school policing state. That was like cool because the school was representative the state. If they didn't do that, if they didn't force us to do that, the state will punish them. So it is like about layers of hierarchy, of course, like the state, the local government, and then the school, and then us. But according to the when I start writing and think, um, officially, it was always in my back of my head. Okay, yeah, that is forgiven. Like
So in choosing to be a writer, you're committing to work that is going to confront this.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. But in the wide scale, when I was a little young journalist, like 20 or 21 years old, I wrote an essay in one of our newspaper, and of course the essay was criticizing the state and what they were doing for us as youth, you know, and how they treat us as youth at that time, and that issue of the government have been banned. That issue of the newspaper have been banned. Okay, and then I said, okay, this is serious, you know. But the thing is, or the funny thing is, I never stopped. It's not I don't care about the issue with being care banned or not, the newspaper, but I was just wanting to say what I think is right and what I believe it is right as a young girl, and also the constitutionally, I have that right to say what I believe.
Right. And what you're speaking about, Rania, also is a extra layer of vulnerability as a female writer, as a female identifying writer. Um, I wonder if you could just respond to that a bit more. I mean, did you did you see that all around you growing up as well? This awareness that like this is not just because I'm a student or because I'm outspoken, but because I am a woman. And how did that
Yes.
shape you as a writer? Hmm.
Yes, of course, that is started with me since I was a little girl. I have we are seven siblings, and the older, right away, the older of me was a boy, and I started how they treated us. For example, when he say, "I want a bicycle," they got him a bicycle. But if I ride that bicycle, they would prevent me to do that because this is not a girl thing, you know? And also, as much as grown up, for him, he could come back at any time home, 12, 1 p.m., but I can't. I have to come before the sunset. So I was like noticing these subtle things, and I was getting every time angry and why I should do that and why I should not do that. And also, of course, how I was dressed. Okay, and this is I see it as kind of censorship because how I dress, it is a way for me to express myself, right? But when I have to dress in certain way, that means I have to follow a certain path or follow a certain thinking or way of thinking. That could be in the small unit like a family, and also a bigger unit in the society, and even bigger in the state and the law that enforce us as a Sudanese women to do this or to do that. So I started in at very, very, very young age, like these questions of why. And also the anger start to build, like why and why and why. And I'm just like my brother, he's just 4 years old than me, but the huge difference of how the parents treat, or not just treat the whole society treat the boys is so different than the girls.
Yeah. Yeah, anger and rage are great motivating factors. They give us direction in life.
Yeah.
Um, on that note, Kirsten, I remember when we were editing your essay for us, and you wanted to be clear in the text that you're both a writer and an activist, and that those two things go hand in hand. And so I wonder if you could talk a bit about that, how this embodying of your activism and having it go side by side with your writing has made you more vulnerable or not. Maybe it's given you a superpower in light of all this repression.
Yeah, I think it's given me a very kind of special sort of niche in Singapore, and I think, but it took a little bit of kind of working through in my own head what it was that I actually wanted to do. So I wanted to be a journalist for some time and was looking at the kind of more common paths of journalism. So I knew I didn't want to work in like the local mainstream media because they are they're nominally like independent private companies, but they're so entrenched with the state that, I didn't want to work there. And by the time I decided that I really wanted to pursue journalism professionally, I don't think I could have worked there. Um, so that was an option. So I was looking at, oh, maybe I will be a journalist for one of the wires. Maybe I'll join like, you know, um, international news agencies like BBC or things. And so I was kind of thinking about that and then realizing that if I did any of those things, then um, it would be expected by like company and newsroom policy that I would stop the activism work. And it kind of just got to a point where I decided that that there are plenty of really good journalists who already work in those places, but there aren't really many people who are writing and focusing and working on issues like death penalty, right? So like there's so many people, good journalists in Singapore, but there are so few of us who work on death penalty, and I kind of decided that that was more important to me, and so kind of then recognize that like, okay, then in that case, what I can bring to this movement would be my skills as a writer. So then it became clearer to kind of work in that direction. And I think it also kind of reminding people that like advocacy journalism exists, that, historically journalism and activism has gone together before and it's not a new thing. And I think that's kind of very much forgotten. And so kind of trying to find a way back to that has been interesting as well.
Forgotten, you mean in Singapore or
I think
internationally?
quite internationally, quite generally, I heard from a lot of when I was a young journalist starting out, I heard from a lot of older journalists that, like it's not possible to be a journalist and an activist at the same time. If you're an activist, you're not a real journalist. And I think for a while that kind of caused a bit of stress because I was thinking like, is it like mutually exclusive that I have to choose one? But it also felt incredibly wrong that it was a requirement to choose. And it also kind of felt like it didn't make sense because, a lot of journalists are also very proud about how like they're the fourth estate and they watch Power and we tell stories that matter and change things. And I'm like, if you're doing that, then how is it that it's so mutually exclusive from activism? And so I think just internationally in the more kind of traditional and mainstream media outlets, there is a reason why they want to push objectivity, but that's not the only way to practice journalism and writing.
Right. Yeah. You have thoughts on that, Rania? Because you also started out as a journalist, right? And I don't know if you're still writing journalism since you've moved into fiction. And I mean, you write poetry, essays,
Yeah.
fiction. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I started as fiction, especially short stories. And even to start that, it's been a long way to do that because I was like a reader when I was so young. And my brother, as this small unit authority, was preventing me from reading what he thought those could expose me to ideas or to things that are bad for me.
Is
You know?
this a brother who got the bike and you didn't?
No, 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 no. This is the older brother.
The older brother. Okay.
I told you we were seven. We are
Yes, yes.
seven. So I'm the youngest.
Okay.
So, so I'm the youngest, and everyone has say on me, because I'm the youngest girl. I have to listen to everyone who's older than me. Uh, uh, yeah. So I started as I said, as fiction writer, short stories, and then I was putting some of my writings when I got into college. I started at age of 12 writing, but when I got into the college uh, age, I was writing every day with hands, like a poster and bind it anywhere on the board of the school. And I wasn't writing under my name. I was writing under a Faria because also that means a lot. First of all, I didn't want to expose myself and my thinking, and that is like personal or internal censorship.
Self-censorship.
Yes. And the other way, I wanted to see how the people would react. And everyone wore, and I called it the morning coffee, cup, the morning coffee cup. In Arabic, funjan al-sabah.
You mean because it was there every morning
Yes,
when you went into
since
the
the
room?
day I would
Hmm.
write it the night before, and then in the morning I will go and post it, and everyone was asking, "Who's this Al-Faria? Who's this Al-Faria?" And I would be standing behind them to see their reactions. Okay, little by little, when I found they are accepting what I'm writing, then I exposed myself, like about 20 year or something. And yeah, according to the state, because we had very uh, suppressive regime that is combination between Muslim brotherhood and military coup. So it was the ultimate suppression regime anyone could have. So, and we had so little uh, opposition, especially the leftist. Okay, so sometimes I was because my one of my sons-in-law that he was married to my older sister, he was a leftist, and he would bring those forbidden, uh, newspapers and I was reading them. That opened my mind. There is different thing than this. Okay. But when I started, because I worked also at a very young age at the local radio station, when I interviewed one of the leftist people, that podcast will be banned, even through this small local radio station, because they don't want the state or the upper people, the upper in the level, of course, to get mad or do something against the channel, the radio station.
So how would they ban? They would just like shut down the station or
No,
just
no, no,
say we
no.
can't do that again.
They wouldn't stream that issue
I see.
of the program.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yes. And as I said in that meeting, in Sudan, we have pre-publishing censorship, after publishing censorship. Pre-publishing censorship, that when you'd find one of the state employees or officers would come and sit inside the building of the newspaper and would have an office there and would read everything before go to the print.
Hmm.
And even after, and we say this is yes, this is no. And even after it got printed, there's another one who would say no, this is no. And sometimes they would just ban that issue. And most of those newspaper were independent, so that was costing them so much money to print and to journalist uh, salaries and everything. So that was costing them a lot. And we would find a particular journal like Al-Ayam or something would be closed for years until it could be open again. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as I said, personally, when I was at this radio station, I faced it because even the director of that show would be, that podcast would be, agree with me, but he would say the administrator wouldn't approve that. And actually, the administrator listened to that and they say, no, we are not broadcasting that. So we are just repeat something from the past issues. Yeah. And
Right. I
it
mean,
was like 21 or something ish.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Around the time Kirsten started her blog.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, thinking back on these methods of state censorship where you need real humans, not computers, to go through everything and the cost of that and the time and the absurdity of the whole thing. It's reminding me of the piece that Jesus Giancurbelo, who was supposed to join us and couldn't today, but an essay he wrote for us called Almost Nothing I Wrote Exists, about going through that process with Cuban state-owned media. Um, it's it's different from what you've experienced, Kirsten, after the block and once you started publishing in other outlets. But there is something similar in Singapore, according to your essay, where there is this intimidation by the state, right? This following, very subtle, and it almost seems like you really, for a writer from another place writing in Singapore, they might not be able to pick up on the nuance of what they're trying to tell you not to publish about. Can you tell us a bit about that process of I guess like what Rania was describing, the pre-publication censorship?
Yeah, so we don't have that sort of direct pre-publication censorship. I think Singapore is still very image conscious in that it itself does not recognize that it is authoritarian or oppressive and would like to project this image that it's open and open for business and, a cosmopolitan global city that people should move to. So we don't have that sort of pre-censorship, but there is a lot of self-censorship, and there are a lot of kind of markers and signals to remind you what the stakes are, right? So historically, we know that senior members of the ruling party uh, are very willing to bring defamation suits against media publications, against journalists, and we've seen even against bloggers. There's right now a defamation suit that's ongoing between two ministers and Bloomberg, and the journalist that wrote the story. And, we've seen them limit the circulation of foreign papers. We've seen them have lawsuits to the point that people go bankrupt, or like, newspapers shut down, magazines shut down. So, so there's always that. Then there's a whole bunch of other laws that kind of could be used against you. So we have laws related to, say, racial harmony. So if you are seen to be inciting ill will between racial groups, that's something that they can take action. If um, there used to be a sedition act, it's been repealed, but it has, been in effect before. There's contempt of court if you comment on ongoing court cases. And or if you comment anything about the independence of the judiciary, there's, and now we also have laws related to so-called like falsehoods online or fake news. And so there are all these different levers and mechanisms that could be used. Um, Even further behind the scenes, things like foreign journalists could have visas that are just not renewed, and then they have to leave the country. And so people are just kind of aware that this ruling party, this government has been in power for so long, and they have control over so many things that like there are so many levers that they could use. So then that kind of incentivizes you to kind of really think very carefully about what you say and how you say it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, both of you are clearly made a difficult choice here early on in your careers, and stuck with it. And I imagine there are big costs. I mean, we've discussed them before this call, but I wonder if you feel comfortable talking about them, right? I mean, both how censorship has shaped how you do your work, how you write, what you write about, but also where you choose to live, and make your living as a writer and who you choose to work with. So I wonder if you could both talk about that. You could start, Kirsten, since or sorry,
Yeah,
Rania, since we haven't heard from
Rania,
you.
Kirsten,
Yeah.
start.
Oh, I start.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm still in Singapore for now. Um, and it's something that I and my family have tried quite consciously to be as long as possible because I would like to be on the ground as long as possible. But yeah, it does get tricky. So I do have still multiple open investigations, police investigations. N- So far, not directly for my writing, but for things like taking photos outside the court or taking photos outside the prison, um, stuff like that. Uh, and they open investigations for like very strange things. I have one open investigation that's for potentially harassing a police officer, where at the time of the alleged harassment, he was interrogating me. Like I was in the interrogation room, and somehow I'm also being questioned for potential harassment of him. Um, and and so there are all these different cases there. There's a sense that there are people who get a little bit afraid of associating with me or my friends, other activists, because there's like, like these somewhat dangerous people, the government doesn't like them. I got my personal email address read out in Parliament on the record by a minister for a law at the time. who's still the Minister for Home Affairs. And and so like there are these different things that happen, and you are aware that it does make things a little bit trickier when it comes to work, when it comes to, you know, generally how people look at you and how what people think about you when, they read smear campaigns and things like that. But I think there is still a lot more space than people might sometimes think to do things, and like the civil society community, I think, is still growing and also changing and becoming much more openly defiant, becoming much more aware of the power of solidarity in dealing with these sorts of things. So like it's not as easy to be isolated now as it was before. And I think that's making a big difference. So I do try to stay for as long as I can. I probably won't be able to stay forever. But yeah, like, even if I do move abroad, I think it wouldn't be like fully exile. I would still want to come back in and out. So and be connected as much as possible.
Yeah, but I think you're also modeling what's possible as a writer, and as an activist, a writer and an activist. And I think when we spoke last time, you mentioned how at a book signing, people have
Yeah.
come up to you too and said, like, I didn't realize that there were other people like me. Can you talk
Yeah.
about that a bit? Hmm.
Yeah, so I learned, over the years of doing this, that I learned also that just like existing as a writer and an activist like I do, kind of encourages that sort of imagination of what's possible in Singapore. So I have heard from a lot of students who say things like, I had wanted to be a journalist, but I didn't want to work for the mainstream media because they don't align with my values. And then I thought that meant that was the end of journalism for me. But then I realized that, hey, maybe there's a different path. So I've heard a lot of students say that. I do sometimes get students come and ask for, sometimes they just ask for advice one-on-one, but sometimes they ask, like, can we do like the little workshop? And they want to figure out their own ways, whether it's professionally or not, or whether it's just something that they do on their own time as volunteers. They want to figure out their own ways of how to marry writing with the causes that they care about. And just people who say that, it's a relief to be able to read these things and realize that they aren't the only ones thinking about it. Because I think what's really, powerful and disempowering about this sort of self-censorship where nobody wants to say or talk about these things, it just creates this illusion that if you have questions, you are alone in
Hmm.
asking. And maybe the
Hmm.
problem is you because everyone else seems so happy. So why are you asking all these questions?
Right.
So yeah, I've had people who come up and say that, it's it's just really comforting and also empowering to realize that it's not just them, they are not the crazy ones. And that actually a lot of us have these sorts of questions about how things work and questions about why we can't change things.
Hmm. And clearly the state is threatened by it,
Mm.
by the words. Um, Rania, in the essay you wrote for us, Exile wrote me twice. Well, you wrote about exile and ultimately leaving Sudan. Was that a result of censorship specifically? Can you tell us a bit
Yeah,
about
uh,
that?
um, I would say that result of combination of censorship and activism. Because through censorship, I have struggled with the state. For example, they canceled one of my signing book or launching book because the state said, no, Rania, no, we are not doing that. And they banned some of the issues that the magazine of I was writing on, which is at Doha, which is not even in Sudan. But when it comes, the issue would come in Sudan. Of course, I told you about this censorship while someone would read everything. And then whenever they saw something about Sudan or from a Sudanese person inside Sudan, they would ban that book, that issue. And the funny thing is, after a year from banning that issue, they cut it the 2 pages that I wrote the essay on, and they released it for to be distributed, which is just hilarious thing,
Who
you
did
know?
the state? The
Yeah,
censors?
yes, yes, because they would like let us say would be like 2,000 issue from a Doha magazine that comes through to Sudan.
Hmm.
They have to read it. And did I tell you how the Sudanese like people defied this censorship? You would find, sorry, I'm just drifting away and I will come back.
No, no, you're
You would,
following.
yes, you would find Sudanese, like normal people, for example, with the books of Fathi Daw, who was a political critics, journalist and writer. He was writing those very fabulous books. They are totally banned from Sudan to get in the like legal way to Sudan. So if I go to Cairo, for example, I will put one of those copies in my suitcase, and then I will smuggle it in Sudan, and then I will take it to a photo print shop, and they will bring photo like copy as much as they can, and then they will like secretly distributed it. We even went further than that. We made this like public in the air um, book fair every first Thursday from every month, and we call it mafrush. Mafrush is means like things are just there, you know. And at that mafrush, at that event, every month, you would find every book that you can't find it in the regular channels, you know, like
Books that have been
bookstores or
banned.
something. Yes, yes.
Huh.
Although photocopying books could harm the author and the publishing house, but it's so much benefit from the message. And from my own experience, the writer would prefer the message to be delivered than he has some thousands of dollars, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yes, yes, from
Yeah.
my own experience, because even my books have been photocopied and I was happy with it, you know. I didn't, and actually,
It's an
even,
honor of sorts. Yes.
yes,
Yes, it's
yes,
great.
even you find them PDF. People yeah, copy them and they put them PDF for everyone free to download.
So I guess the Sudanese state was not able to catch these people, was not able to kind of like go after these
No,
other
no,
efforts
because
to.
it is like wide grassroots movement. Even if they shut off Mafrouche, the event that I'm talking about, for 1 month, the next 1 month we would come again, you know? And one book could be read by 100 people, just only one copy. You know, you give it to your friends, you give it to your neighbor, you give it to your dad or whatever. So once the book is being copied, it is not for one person, you know. The
Right.
book could be spread everywhere. Even, let me tell you this, a story, and it's real, and it's my friend Abdelaziz Barakar Sakin. He's one of the famous novelist, Sudanese novelist. When his novel, have been censored and banned from being distributed, okay, because we have also this department in the government that will authorize the songs, the
Lyrics.
lyrics, and of course, poetry books, novels, whatever. It has to be published. They would read it and they would say yes or no. Or they would say, yes, but you have to change this. or delete this or something. So this Abdulaziz Barak when he being censored, do you know what he did?
What did he do?
He put his novel in a Word document. Of course, it wasn't a Word document, and he sent it to everyone he knows through the email and asked everyone, to send it to their mailing list.
Hmm.
It was now it is the famous novel that the Sudanese people read for Abdulaziz Barakasakin, although it's been censored, you and it's
Yeah,
been
that's a
banned from being published. Yes.
wonderful way to subvert the state and that system and to go viral, right, through
Yes,
via
just
email.
emails, because
Yeah.
they can censor the emails. Yes, they can ban Sudanese .com or something which was a board for the opposite Sudanese who can come and say their opinion or publishing their including myself like poems or whatever. They would like ban it from Sudan. Like they would. If you are in Sudan, you
Mhm.
wouldn't be able to access that
Right,
website, you know?
right. But
And
it's
that
open
was
to,
that was in like uh, 2003 and 4 and 6 and those time of the year before the social media comes. So
yeah,
what I want to say is that the Sudanese people could find a way to uh, to avoid the censorship. Yes, it is there, but we still can deliver our message or whatever we want, our art or something,
mhm.
and that's it. And then you do what you want to do.
Yeah, I
That's a
think that's
wonderful.
very common to
Mhm.
experience it. I think like wherever you find censorship, you will find um that people know how to get what they want.
Yes,
And
that's
I
true.
think so like through editing Mekong Review, we recently had a piece from Kashmir and it's very similar, when they ban a book, it becomes a PDF and then it goes in a Telegram group chat and it goes to everywhere and people have it and librarians are shelving their books but deliberately leaving empty spots to signal that this is where the state came and
Oh,
say this book
wow.
has to be taken. And so like people find ways to signal what has been taken from them and they find ways to get what they want to read.
That
Yes.
absence and what it represents. Yeah.
I agree. And also, people will find these ways according to their environment,
Mm.
according to their way of life. Because, for example, the Sudanese way of life, they sharing. If I have a book, and I read it, I can give it for the whole class. So one by one could read it. I wouldn't say no, this is mine or something. So those like people or citizens, they can find ways, however they live and however they are, to avoid this censorship.
Right.
And still there is art, still there is writing, still there is songs and poems against the government, but you know it is still on the level of grassroots thing, like on the people, which it has to be for the people, right?
Right, right. And
Yeah.
that is ultimately the impact of censorship at that level is you're really pushing everyone underground and there's more motivation
Yes.
to push back. I want
Yeah.
to make
In
sure that we,
Singapore, sometimes they accidentally make the thing more popular.
yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
that's true.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
we had like a graphic novel called The Art of Charlie Chan Hock Chai by Sunny Liu and it was they didn't ban it, so they very rarely want to outright ban something, but they just kind of want to signal that they don't like it, right? So they just very shortly before the book launch, they revoked his publishing grant, so the publisher had to give back, like they had a few $1,000s to help the publisher in a publishing grant, and they withdrew the grant. And so the books were all actually already printed, and the publisher had to print all these stickers to like black out to like
Mm,
cover the government state logo that they had the publishing grant. But just the news, so they released the news, they said the publishing grant has been withdrawn because this graphic novel undermines government authority. And that made a graphic novel that actually probably very few people would have read because like
mm.
I wasn't gonna read it because I don't usually read graphic novels and it's like $36 to buy a copy. I was like, it's a bit expensive. But because of that, suddenly it was the must read of the season, right? And it became
Sure.
such a massive bestseller and like it also it did so well in Singapore, then it did so well internationally. He's become like Singapore's only Eisner winner, and his book has been translated to multiple languages. And like I think this year or last year, the publisher actually put out a 10th year anniversary edition because it is Singapore's biggest hit,
Amazing.
and it kind of started because they took the publishing grant away.
Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah.
State Censors. I'm so sorry, Rania. I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to make sure we get our audience questions in too. So if you can stand by, please. I want to remind everyone to go to the Q&A feature, and we already have some questions on there. So let me just read those to you all, or as many as we can. Here's a question. Did Rania ever have any of her relatives threatened by the Sudanese state because of her journalism career? Yeah. How did it
Actually,
affect your family?
yes, actually, yes, we've been arrested. My brother and my sister and myself. Uh, Unfortunately, because of me, and we've been judged and took to court, and it took a long time, like few months, for them to decide what to do with us. And that because we participated in, actually I participated in the demonstration protest against the government, and then my brother and my sister came to just support me, and then they arrested me first, and then my sister and brother who were like next to me, they tried to like help me or just protect me.
Mm,
So all of us we took to the prison, and
mm.
actually my brother get hurt, like his head being cracked open,
Oh, gosh.
and his neck, this like collar neck, or how collar neck,
Collarbone.
collarbone,
Collarbone. Yeah.
collarbone have been broken,
Oh, jeez.
and he was just bleeding, and still they took all of us to the cell. Until the next day, the people knew that Rania have been arrested, and her sister and brother. So they made like this campaign or something to release me, you know.
Mm,
And because yes, the government is so aggressive, but still they want to have this foolish face, you know. They don't want very very much like noise, or
yeah, sure.
very or they don't want the people
They want
to,
to control that message.
yes, to put their ugly face on the media. And because of the social media, it was viral, not in Sudan, but during the Arabic world, the Middle East. So I've been released, but
Hmm.
I have to go to court and to be like convict and things like that. Although actually, Kristen, the thing that they came up with, that I insulted an officer and hit him with a stone, although I didn't do that, you know. But that was the thing that
They accused you of attacking him, but he had shown up with with a rock.
No, actually, they were wearing this helmet, and they
Mm,
have the buttons, and they have this shield thing. How would
Mhm.
I throw him? How would I hurt him? He was fully protected. Okay. So
mm,
yeah, because they didn't find anything against, so they said that I threatened an officer and hit him. Actually, as I said, they hit me and my brother, and they dragged me on the ground, and they harassed me sexually,
mm.
and they threatened me by rape, gang rape. This is what they did. And after all of that, they put us in the cell, in jail, you know?
That's
But
horrifying.
when the court, they brought someone who witness, and one of them, he said,
Mm.
no, she was throwing the this protected man with helmet and this covering thing and the shield.
Mm.
I was threatening him with a stone.
But that social media campaign helped.
It helped. It
That's
helped.
one of the questions that we have that I would love you both to answer as well. How can we mitigate censorship via social media platforms these days?
Go, Kristen.
Yeah, I think different countries have different contexts, but most of the time, even authoritarian governments have things that they care about and that they want, right? And, you know, sometimes they want to do all these things, but they don't want it, as Rania said, they don't want it to look too bad. And the fact that governments are worried about things looking too bad is actually an entry point for people to be able to exercise some power, right? And that's some leverage that we have that, they don't want it to look too bad. So a lot of the times, what actually lets oppression be excused and let them get away with it is the lack of visibility, right? The lack of questioning. So if things are much more visible, then it that affects the sort of political calculation that states have to make to decide like what to do. So I think, that's one opportunity for us to use social media to kind of make these things visible. That's definitely one lesson we learned through working on death penalty issues that, Singapore has got away with, being um, such a high application death penalty state for so long because people, including Singaporeans locally, did not know how many executions we had. And, like, I think this year we've already executed like multiple people and we're only halfway through the year. It's about,
Mm.
I think, 8 or 9 executions already, and it's only May. Um, and before the government used to get away with this because nobody knew about it, but the more visible you can make it, the more people have questions. Like 9 executions in 2026 by May. The
Mm.
more visible we can make it, the more we can tell these stories, um, the more people notice. And the hope is that with this sort of visibility, it affects that sort of political calculus of what they can do and how far they can go.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to add to that, Rania?
Yeah, yes, I of course I agree with Christian, and also I add this grassroots aspect. If the foundation, like if there is a strong a grassroots movement, okay, and it is strong, and of course it will build little by little, little by little, until it reached this critical mass, as we call it, and then the government like it doesn't matter how strong or suppressed the government is, when they see the people, you know this critical mass, they want this thing or they want to change, it will be changed. Like yes, so my approach, as we did in Sudan, is just from the grassroots, and then you go a little by little. Of course, it takes a long time and it takes a long effort and everything and money and things. For us, we were funding ourselves from ourselves. Like when we print posters, or when we get the pen to write on the walls, or when we take the poster to be printed and we distributed it, we were just sharing,
Mm.
like everyone would put something. Yes, and it took us uh, 6 years in my city, like with Madani resistance committees. It took us 6 years of working underground until the revolution started. And when it started, the people were ready, because they had these messages already. So yeah.
Right. It's like
Uh,
having this, not never working alone and having different levels of community and solidarity.
yes.
We are out of time, but I want to ask you one more question here. Um, Both of you, how do you build the courage to be bold and express yourself despite the consequences you may face? What advice would you have for others to do the same?
Um, I think it's also one thing that it's very easy to forget because the stakes can be quite high and there are so many risks and so many things to fear that I think we often also forget that, we're constantly thinking about the cost of oppression and state repercussions. And if I did this, I could get in trouble. And we always think about the cost of I could get in trouble. And I think it's very easy to forget that there is also a cost to self-censorship and a
Yeah.
cost to not doing, that the cost of not doing means that maybe you're living not aligned with your own principles. And maybe that's not as visible as, say, getting arrested or sued for defamation. But I think there is a very strong internal cost to knowing that you are not saying the things that you really want to say, or that you are not standing up for the things that you think are right. And I think that sort of causes something that we can think about more, and is that, you know, that might actually turn out to be more important to you than taking some risk,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I found, that like it was in the end, when it came down to, oh, this thing might get me called in by the police, should I not say it? Like it came down to, well, if my two options are to stop and keep going, I would consciously choose to keep going because these things are really important to me. I work with, say, like these death row prisoners' families, and I see how much support that they need. And for me to say, oh, because maybe, not even for sure, but like maybe the police might come, maybe the government will not be happy, I will not do this. I think to me, it kind of just got to a point where it was unacceptable. But it really also does help, as Rania said, that if there's grassroots community, that really does help, because when you know that you're not doing it alone, and when there are other people who are doing it, and you know that people will show up for
And
you, I
you're
think it
accountable
makes
to
a
them.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it
Their
makes a huge
families. Yeah.
difference. So, for example, in Singapore, we now have, as I wrote in my essay, it's more common now that we have a practice where if someone is called to the police station, people do not go alone. So, if you want to make a bigger statement, you can put it on social media, and you might find that 30 people will show up and wait outside the police station. If you don't want to make such a big deal, you can at least tell your circle of friends, and somebody will still show up. So, like, one person goes in and gets questioned, and like three or four of us will go to the cafe across the street,
Mm.
and like, we'll just wait. And so you know that when you come out, someone is waiting for you, and someone is keeping track of how long you're in there. And if they feel you've been in too long, someone is going to go on social media and start complaining about it, and make sure everyone knows. So I think that really helps. Yeah, that sort of community.
Yeah, absolutely. You got
Yeah.
some last words for us, Rania?
Yes, a little bit. Just for me to be honest with myself and then with others. I would say, if I didn't say this, would I respect myself by not saying it because I'm fearing the
Mm.
consequences? So I reached this point, and I had like multiple and many conversation with myself until I reached the point of I'm willing to pay the price no matter what.
Yeah.
Even I would go outside during the Sudanese revolution, and I wouldn't know if I will come back or not. And I don't know if I will come back alive or not. If I would come back, if I could be arrested or raped or killed or put in jail or whatever.
Mm.
I was ready to bear the consequences because what I was saying, it wasn't that something I don't believe in. I believe in it. I want to be honest with myself first, and then I want to be able to pay the price, because whenever you have something to say against the authorities in our country, there is a price. Could be whatever,
Mm.
could be from something small until being killed. And I was ready for that. And also, I knew that I'm not alone. I have friends who would, if I get in trouble, who would help me by any mean they can. I have supporting system, like I have this grassroots people who would do whatever just to like get me safe and alive. So,
Mm.
and this what kept me going, by the way, because if I left it to myself, I would be in stop by a long, long time. But it just have this the authentic or be honest with myself was very critical part. If I say something and I can't do it, for me this is like I am betraying myself.
Mm.
I'm betraying the community. I'm betraying the people that I'm talking for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that in and of itself must not be easy, but it's key. Thank you both for such a candid conversation, for being so open and forthcoming and sharing with our audience. And yeah, I'm really glad, I'm honored I got a chance to talk to you both. And I look forward to more essays from you, fiction, poetry, and Adi. Thanks,
You.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, all three of you, so much for joining us. And thank you all to our audience members for sticking with us. I'll let you all go now, but all the best and many thanks again. All right, good night slash
Take
good
care. Good
morning.
night. Good
Good
morning,
morning.
Kirsten.
Bye.
Bye-bye.